The innocent girl. The sun was setting over the sleepy town of Maplewood, casting a golden glow across the fields that surrounded the village. Children played in the streets, their laughter echoing through the air as they chased each other. Among them was Lily, a girl of no more than 12, with bright eyes and a heart full of wonder. Lily had always been the quiet one who sat at the edge of the group, listening more than speaking. Her mother often said she had an old soul, wise beyond her years. Yet the innocence of her youth was ever present. She lived with her mother and younger brother, Sam, in a small cottage on the edge of town. Her father had died when she was just a baby, leaving behind memories that only existed in old photographs and her mother's stories. Lily loved the stories of her father, especially the ones about the adventures he had in the forests that surrounded Maplewood. He had been a forest ranger, tasked with protecting the land and its creatures. But there was one place. He never spoke of a place deep within the forest that everyone in town seemed to avoid. It was the kind of place that only came up in whispered conversations, or in warnings from parents to their children. "It's not safe there," her mother would say, her eyes darkening at the mere mention of it. "Promise me you'll never go near it, Lily." And Lily had promised, for she was a good girl, a rule follower who never sought to disobey her mother's wishes. But as the years passed, the curiosity grew, as curiosity often does in young minds. What was so dangerous about that part of the forest? Why did her father never speak of it? And why did her mother seem so afraid? One summer afternoon, as the golden sunlight streamed through the windows of their cottage, Lily decided to explore the attic. It was a dusty, forgotten place, full of cobwebs and old furniture covered in white sheets. She had always wondered what treasures might be hidden there. As she rummaged through old boxes, her fingers brushed against something cool and smooth. She pulled it out carefully, blowing away the dust that clung to its surface. It was a map, not just any map, but a hand-drawn one, with detailed sketches of the forest surrounding Maplewood. Her father's handwriting was scrawled in the margins, labeling different paths and landmarks. At the center of the map, circled in red, was the one place she had been warned never to go, Blackthorn Grove. Her heart raced as she stared at the map. She could almost hear her father's voice, telling her stories of the forest, urging her to explore, to discover the wonders it held. And yet, there was the voice of her mother, warning her of the dangers that lay beyond the familiar paths. For days, Lily couldn't shake the thought of the map. It haunted her dreams, pulling at her with an invisible force. One afternoon, while sitting by the window, watching the leaves dance in the breeze, she made a decision. She would go, just this once. She had to know what was hidden in Blackthorn Grove. The next morning, Lily packed a small bag with some food, a water bottle, and her father's map. She told her mother she was going to play with her friends, and headed out the door. Before she could change her mind, the familiar paths of the forest were comforting at first, with the chirping of birds and the rustling of leaves underfoot. But as she ventured deeper, the forest began to change. The trees grew taller, their branches intertwining to block out the sun. The air grew cooler, and a strange silence settled around her. Lily felt a shiver run down her spine, but she pressed on, her eyes glued to the map. She followed the path her father had marked, winding through the forest until she reached the edge of Blackthorn Grove. The trees here were different, darker, with twisted branches that seemed to reach out toward her. The air was thick, almost oppressive, and the silence was deafening. Taking a deep breath, Lily stepped into the grove. The change was immediate. The moment her foot touched the ground, it felt as though the forest itself was watching her. The hairs on the back of her neck stood up, and her heart pounded in her chest. She had always been brave, but something about this place made her feel small and vulnerable. She continued walking, her eyes darting around, trying to make sense of the strange atmosphere. The map led her deeper into the grove, past ancient trees and overgrown paths. After what felt like hours, she stumbled upon a clearing. In the center of the clearing stood an old, crumbling stone structure, almost like a shrine. Vines crept up its sides, and moss covered the stones, but it was still clear enough to see that it had once been something grand. Curiosity got the better of her, and Lily approached the structure. As she got closer, she noticed something strange carvings on the stones. They were intricate, almost hypnotic, and seemed to tell a story, though she couldn't quite understand what it was. Her fingers brushed against the cool stone, and for a moment, she felt a surge of warmth spread through her hand, as though the stone itself was alive. Suddenly, a noise behind her made her spin around. A figure stood at the edge of the clearing, watching her. It was a man, tall and thin, with pale skin and dark, sunken eyes. His clothes were old-fashioned, almost like something from a different time. Lily's heart raced as she took a step back. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice trembling. The man tilted his head, his eyes never leaving hers. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice low and cold. I'm sorry," Lily stammered, clutching the map in her hands. "I didn't mean any harm." The man's eyes flicked to the map, and for a moment, something like recognition flashed across his face. "That map," he said slowly. "Where did you get it?" "It was my father's," Lily replied, her voice barely above a whisper. For a long moment, the man said nothing. Then, without warning, he turned and disappeared into the forest, leaving Lily standing in the clearing, her heart pounding in her chest. Lily stood frozen in the clearing, her mind racing as she tried to process what had just happened. Who was that man? And why did he seem so familiar with her father's map? The encounter had shaken her, but it also stirred something else inside her, a sense of intrigue. She knew she should turn back, but something deep within her urged her to stay, to dig deeper into the mystery surrounding Blackthorn Grove. Clutching the map, she approached the old stone structure again. The carvings on its surface seemed to glow faintly now, almost as if the stones themselves were alive. As Lily traced the carvings with her fingers, a strange warmth spread through her, calming the fear that had gripped her moments before. The carvings told a story, a legend about the forest, about a powerful force that once protected it. Lily squinted at the faded symbols, trying to make sense of them. At the center of the shrine was a circular symbol, more intricate than the others, and within it, a name was etched, *allow an asterisk. Lily whispered the name aloud, and the air seemed to hum in response. Just as she spoke, the ground beneath her feet trembled slightly, and a faint glow emanated from the shrine. The vines covering the stones seemed to retreat, as though making way for something. Lily stumbled back, her heart pounding. The stone structure was reacting to her. "Is this magic?" she thought to herself, scarcely believing what she was seeing. Her father had never mentioned magic, not even in his wildest stories. But here it was, right in front of her, undeniable and alive. Suddenly, the warmth that had spread through her turned cold, and Lily felt a presence behind her. She spun around, her breath catching in her throat. It wasn't the strange man this time, it was something else. A dark figure, cloaked in shadow, hovered at the edge of the clearing, watching her intently. Fear surged through her, but before she could move, a voice echoed in her mind, soft but firm. Do not be afraid, child. Asterisk. Lily's heart raced as she turned back toward the shrine, where the carvings now glowed brightly, illuminating the entire clearing. The figure moved closer, stepping into the light. To her surprise, the figure wasn't frightening at all. It was a woman, tall and graceful, with long, flowing hair the color of silver moonlight. Her eyes, deep and kind, met Lily's with a sense of recognition. "You're Alawan," Lily whispered, the name slipping from her lips without thinking. The woman smiled, though her expression was tinged with sadness. "Yes, I am Alawan, the guardian of this forest, or at least, I once was." Lily stared at her, wide-eyed. "But why are you here? What happened to the forest?" Aloan's gaze softened as she stepped toward Lily. "Long ago, I was the protector of these woods, the trees, the animals, even the people who lived near the forest. They all thrived under my care. But something changed. Darkness crept into the land, corrupting the heart of the forest. I was bound to this shrine, unable to protect the forest as I once did." Lily felt a lump form in her throat as she listened to Aloan's words. And now, Aloan's expression grew serious. "Now, the darkness has returned. It grows stronger every day, and soon, it will consume everything unless it is stopped." Lily's mind raced. This was too much for her to take in. She was just a girl, an innocent bystander who had wandered into the forest out of curiosity. What could she possibly do against a force like that? "But why me?" she asked. "Why are you telling me all this?" Eloan's eyes bore into hers, full of both hope and urgency. "Because your father was one of the few who understood the danger. He tried to warn others, but they didn't believe him. Before he died, he left behind the key to saving this forest." Lily's heart pounded. "The map," Alawan nodded. "The map is the key. It will lead you to the heart of the darkness. But you must be careful. The path is dangerous, and the darkness will try to stop you." Lily felt a mix of fear and determination rise within her. She wanted to run, to return to the safety of her home, but something held her in place. She couldn't ignore the urgency in Aloan's voice, nor could she forget the look in her father's eyes in the old photographs, the pride and love he had for the forest. "What do I have to do?" Lily asked, her voice trembling but resolute. Aloan smiled, her expression softening. "You are braver than you know, Lily. Follow the map. It will guide you to the heart of the forest, where the darkness resides. But you must not go alone. The forest will help you if you trust it." Lily swallowed hard. "But I'm just a girl. How can I stop something like that?" Aloan reached out, placing a hand on Lily's shoulder. "Innocence is not weakness. It is your strength. The forest has chosen you because it knows your heart. You have a pure spirit, Lily, and that is what the darkness fears most." Lily took a deep breath, nodding slowly. "I'll do it. I'll find the heart of the forest and stop the darkness." Aloan's smile widened. "Good. But remember, the darkness will not be easy to defeat. It will try to trick you, to make you doubt yourself. Trust your heart, and trust the forest." With that, Alawan began to fade, her form becoming transparent as the light from the shrine dimmed. I will be with you, Lily. You are not alone. And then, she was gone, leaving Lily standing in the clearing, clutching the map in her trembling hands. The silence of the forest returned, but it no longer felt as ominous. Instead, it felt alive, as though the trees and the creatures within were watching her, waiting to see what she would do next. Lily looked down at the map, her mind spinning with everything that had just happened. She had come into the forest out of curiosity, and now she was faced with a task far greater than anything she could have imagined. But she couldn't turn back now. The forest needed her, and she couldn't let it down. With renewed determination, Lily tucked the map into her bag and started walking. She didn't know what lay ahead, but she knew one thing for sure. She was ready to face whatever came her way. As Lily ventured deeper into the forest, the light of the setting sun faded, casting long shadows across the path. The trees grew denser, their branches intertwining above her, blocking out what little light remained. She had entered the heart of the forest, the place where the map said the darkness resided. For hours Lily walked, the silence of the forest pressing in around her. Every rustle of leaves or snap of a twig made her jump, but she pressed on, determined to reach her destination. The map led her through winding paths and overgrown trails, past ancient trees and dark, still ponds. Eventually, she reached a clearing, much like the one where she had met Alawan. But this one was different. The air here was thick with tension, and the ground was covered in blackened, twisted vines. At the center of the clearing stood a large, gnarled tree, its bark as dark as night. It was the heart of the darkness. Lily felt a chill run down her spine as she approached the tree. The air around it seemed to pulse with a dark energy, and the shadows cast by its twisted branches seemed to move on their own. This was it, the source of the corruption that had plagued the forest for so long. She reached into her bag and pulled out the map, her hands shaking. The final instruction was clear. She had to place her hand on the tree and call upon the forest power. It sounded simple enough, but Lily could feel the darkness pushing against her, trying to make her doubt herself. Taking a deep breath, Lily stepped forward and placed her hand on the rough bark of the tree. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the ground beneath her feet began to tremble. The tree seemed to shudder, and the dark energy surrounding it grew stronger. Lily closed her eyes and focused on the forest around her, on the life that still thrived despite the darkness. She thought of Alawan, of her father, of the stories he had told her about the beauty of the forest. She thought of the innocence she had carried with her all her life, the purity of her heart that Alawan had spoken of. And then she called out to the forest, her voice clear and strong. I will protect you. As the words left Lily's mouth, the forest seemed to respond. The air around her shimmered, and a soft wind began to swirl through the clearing. The dark energy that surrounded the twisted tree pushed back, growing more intense as if it could sense the threat that Lily posed. The ground trembled, and the vines at her feet writhed like snakes, inching closer to her.